What's up, Captains? Dreadnought here, with potentially my most ambitious series yet. Today starts my first series of this channel. I'm proud to present to you Dreadnought vs. Fractured Space, two online, multiplayer, free-to-play space titles. Now, I understand that Fractured Space is a MOBA and Dreadnought is an arena shooter, and I'll definitely be taking those differences into mind when it comes to this versus. So first, this series will be comprised of 4 different videos. Each video will take a key point of each game and assess it. In the last video, we'll have our final rating of which game ranked higher on the score sheet. The 4 points will be lore, the free-to-play model, developer and community interaction, and lastly, gameplay. Now, this doesn't technically mean one game is better than the other if I rate it higher out of 10. It just means that the preference for which I scored was higher, and you know, everybody's score sheet will be different, because opinion is huge in verses like this. So take it with a grain of salt and just kind of look at it as a way of maybe if you like what I like, then maybe you'll agree, and if you don't like what I like, then do the other thing. Maybe you'd like Fractured Space more, maybe you'd like Dreadnought more. It just depends on what you like. With that being said, I encourage you to try both games because they're both free to play. That way you can see for yourself. Now that that's out of the way, let's get this started with Dreadnought. So currently, Dreadnought doesn't have an active campaign or story mission within the game. Much of its lore is comprised of descriptions within most hero ships and the 3 main factions who manufacture the warships. Lore is also sprinkled among certain cosmetic items that you can buy for your ship, and your in-game avatar customizations. For example, we're aware of the presence of pirates in the Dreadnought universe due to the Scumbelt pirate skins and decals. The decal explains that Scumbelt pirates hold no allegiances, not even to the Sydney Bay Captains Guild, suggesting that there's more than just military presence in space, but independent colonies as well, and independent factions. There's also some minor lore about the map locations and the map loading screens. One example explains that transhumans were so advanced they turned one of the moons of Uranus into a tropical paradise, and that is the... Transhuman turning Uranus into a tropical paradise. After addressing the Discord community for help on where I could find some sources of lore outside of the game, I was given a wiki link to follow. The link will be in the description below. After review and more community discussion about it though, it's determined that half of the lore on this wiki page is made from an older company and that a new company is taken over. So much of this older stuff might get retconned, but for now it's there on the wiki page, which is in the description below. So we're gonna move to the 3 main factions, and I'll read off kind of what they are because it's the most attainable source of lore that we have, and then I'll go over descriptions. Jupiter Arms, fighting for a better tomorrow. Jupiter Arms battleships are the cutting edge of humanity's battlefield technology, built to be flexible, to support differing needs, vital to the success of any warship mission. Jupiter Arms tech is unmatched in its versatility. Jupiter Arms battleships are chiefly generalists, faster but not as tanky as a Kulavector, yet slower but tankier than Oberon. Then we have a Kulavector. Outguns and outlasts. Akulavector battleships are the workhorses of the battlefield, built to last. These ships are generally the most resilient of all the manufacturers. The key characteristic of Akulavector battleships is durability. Slower than Jupiter Arms and Oberon, they excel at taking a beating. Their armor is hard, making them excellent damage absorbers on the battlefield. Oberon, helping the future return. Oberon battleships are very sleek and give the impression of being magical. Built using reverse-engineered technology from transhumans, these ships are generally the fastest and lightest on the battlefield. The key characteristic of Oberon battleships is maneuverability. Faster than Jupiter arms and a cooler vector, they excel at bobbing and weaving. Their armor is generally light though, making them delicate speedsters, hard to hit, but if they do, they succumb quickly. It's important to note that the word transhuman is seen sprinkled throughout the lore, and it's hinted at quite frequently, and takes a major role in the story. Not much is yet known, but there was a huge human versus transhuman war, and as far as I've been able to determine, they're either human-created cyborgs or AI that became self-aware and wanted to break away from humanity for whatever reason. Possibly because of being outcast, or maybe they just weren't considered their own intelligence, but they're not considered free of humanity. So they built ships and left for Uranus, where they formed their own colony. Shortly thereafter, it's assumed the Human Transhuman War started. The transhumans were vastly more advanced than Earth, and it quickly became apparent that humans just could not win. It's even noted that ramming became a tactic of humans in a futile attempt at victory, due to their ship's weapons being unable to breach transhuman vessels' armor, and prompted Oberon to start making ships designated for ramming, as it was more effective than their own cannons. Fortunately for Earth, the transhumans were not interested in our annihilation and left the system to avoid any further conflict. They left behind much technology that the humans now study and reverse engineer. I predict that the transhumans are biological with mechanical augments or just straight mechanical AIs. Either way, I don't think they started as humans. I think that's just a name. I also feel that we will see them again. Nothing is known about their leadership, so it's possible they may come back for revenge under new leadership. After asking the community what they think, an interesting idea formed that they were biological organisms who ascended to artificial intelligence and then integrated into their ships and can move their housed conscience at will, much like AI chips in Halo. I actually like this theory, and I'd like to see the devs integrate that into the game. There's just enough mystery behind the lore to interest me, and personally reminds me of like the early days of Halo, when nobody really knew what the Forerunners were, and they really held that mystique of who are these guys. The lore is definitely something to look forward to as the game develops. After the Transhuman War, there were post-war colonial skirmishes. From what we know of these wars, Earth apparently is now Federal Earth, and command their own Federal Earth military, including the Federal Earth Navy. It appears several systems are independent, such as the Jovian system that harbors the Enyoan colony of Europa. The political stance of all colonies on Earth is unclear, as we can assume they aren't just all at war, and in fact I'm sure many are joined under like treaties and such. There's not a lot to study, so I don't know. From some stances, though, the lore does seem to push a narrative that Earth is considered evil by many independent systems, as it appears Earth wants to take away their freedoms and independence and merge with them, at least from their point of view. So that's pretty much all I have on lore when it comes to Dreadnought. Now, there's definitely a lot more sprinkled in, and like I said, there's some in the loading screens and some hidden, but that's the general idea, is that Earth is like a federation now. There are people out in space, there's pirates, there's independent systems, there's people that rely on each other, there's amazing generals, and there's an alien or AI race that is off system somewhere, possibly ready to come back. But there was a huge war, they influenced all the ships, and now most of the fights are within like the Scum Belt, it seems. It seems that's where a lot of pirates harbor themselves, and then there's like different guilds and treaties. So it's really interesting. I actually love it, and I can't wait for it to be expanded. And I do personally hope, and a lot of the community has said, that we hope for like a single player campaign or a co-op campaign or something more to actually drive the story, because it's very interesting. Now we move on to Fractured Space. Now I didn't add this into my notes, but I want to say as a disclaimer, the amount of info I gathered may make me seem biased towards Dreadnought, but unfortunately I just don't know if I struggled in where to look or I couldn't find the right sources. The amount of info I was able to gather is kind of small. It's not terribly small, and you'll see, but let's just get into it. Trust me, I really tried my ass off to get as much lore as I could accurately. Now, the Fractured Space universe also has 3 factions comprised of Titan Defense Systems, the USR, also known as United Space Research, and APEC. So the ship descriptions don't say anything about the lore. They're mostly saying like what the ship physically does in game. So other than that, I can't find much lore as to why we're in space or like why these factions have formed, but from what I've been seeing, it does seem that Earth has taken to the stars, and these three factions are either from nations or large corporations. USR is very obviously influenced from America, as their colors are red, white, and blue, and the way that they're patterned. You can tell it's America. With APEC very obviously being Russian influence, and even having Russian-looking words within the text of their ships and stuff. And then Titan, I'm assuming, this is 100% an assumption, is mercenary or a security team or some form of military that's independent, but it's very obviously military in origin. So after some digging, there's an important part of the game which has you managing your crew. They come in crew cards. I bring this up because each crew member has backstory and a little taste into the universe of Fractured Space. IX-209, for example, is a self-aware artificial life form that is entitled to all the same rights as any organic and is the navigations officer. He comes from a colony made up and run entirely of AI. It's unknown how common colonies of AI are, and it seems to insinuate that it's fairly uncommon for any of the AI to leave and pursue the life of their own, as he does choose, but he also chooses to process and review its daily experiences and then sends them home to share with his family. It's unknown if he shares it as a huge conscience over the whole planet, but it does say to his family, which is large, by the way. IX-209 has only landed the spot of navigations officer due to the fact that he's worked around humans and on warships for 70 years of his life. He's also self-repairing, so he probably could live forever, technically. He's developed a series of connections to secure his job where he is now as a nav officer. He's still generally disliked by other staff, so it's kind of insinuated that human and AI coexistence is quite rare at this time in the lore. Speaking of AI crew, KN-1FE, otherwise known as Knife, is an AI created from something called the Swarm. From what I understand from the survival game mode, the Swarm is an ever-consuming AI race that want to expand and destroy all. They might not be AI, but that's the impression I got. They had like a human, half biological, half mechanical leader or something. I could be completely wrong, I'm sorry here. But they're basically the Borg in my mind. But I guess the Swarm got destroyed or pushed back now, but the fractured remains and remnants of them remain, because Knife, he was ripped from his normal housed unit, of which there were many clones, and he was ripped from the original, and now he is just a conscience housed in AI. Another crewman named Zared Greyfist is a clone video game player from Texas.
I just told them I was from Texas and they sat me down in tactical.
So I'm assuming Earth is relatively in the state that it is today. This could be wrong though, since he is a clone, and he's a clone of a modern day gamer. So it's possible that Texas doesn't even exist anymore, and he's just recalling where he's from because he's cloned. But it could also say that Earth is relatively within the way that it is now. So on top of this, there's like pirate crews, which is suggesting that there's of course pirates in the universe of Fractured Space. The game goes even as far as to having an intelligent cat who can be on your ship. Yeah, a cat. Captain Jonesy. As for in-game lore, Fractured Space has campaigns, but not like what you think. There's no like single player here, just a set of tasks to complete, and once you beat those, you move on to the next set of tasks. So like in a phone game, when you're on a level, you beat that level, and you move on the map. That's kind of like what this campaigns are. You'll be at location 1, you complete a few tasks, and once you beat those, it will say now you can move to location 2. Location 2 is a set of tasks. Now, in the descriptions of these tasks, it will say, such and such is at war, assist them. Well, you don't really see that. You just play the game like normal. The tasks will be destroy this many dreads, capture this many points. So it's not really like a campaign, but it does give hints into the lore. Honestly, though, it's supposed to make you feel like you're contributing, I'm assuming, to helping out a faction or ending a war. It's fairly forgettable and not immersive, though. If anything, you really only remember your assigned tasks and then move to grind them out, really. Fractured Space does have visual story, though, in the form of episodes. If you ever played Halo 4, you would probably be able to safely compare these to Spartan Ops. It consists of a cutscene, followed by a specific game mode, such as Survival, Bomb Delivery, or Conquest. Your team consists of other players, while the opponent is all AI controlled. During the battle, a narrative is being told, ending in either a win or fail cutscene. Unfortunately, each episode only lasts until the next episode comes out, or the next season, and then it's not replayable unless you go to the in-game store and you buy the episode. It's comparable to a dev team releasing DLC for free, but when the next DLC comes out, you have to buy previous DLC or it becomes unavailable. I actually have no negative opinion on this, as I see why they have done it this way. It is what it is. With a smaller community of dedicated players, having all the seasons readily available might make for like longer queue times and encourages play of the current season. Unfortunately, I'm sure the story is more rich than I can provide, but I don't have the resources to find it. Of course, I could always go personally and buy these seasons, and I would be excited to, but each one is 2,000 platinum, and that equates to about $10 per episode. And unfortunately, I can't justify 30 to 40 minutes of game time to be worth $10, as I would probably only play it one time for this video, and maybe for another video. I will tell you this from memory, and if you're a hardcore Fractured Space lore fan, please forgive me for any holes that I have, but I'm reciting everything I can from memory. As far as I know, from the Survival, episodes 3 and 4, you are helping out a scientist as he tries to research some giant self-aware orb. This orb is important, but I have no idea why. It seems like the bad guys are trying to get their hands on it as well. The only problem is it's self-aware and shoots a huge laser. They can shut it down by damaging it, but it's pretty strong, and it's seen destroying fleets of ships in these cutscenes. So you help a guy, and you have run-ins with these pirates, or enemy faction, or maybe their swarm, and you play through scenarios like delivering a bomb into one of their space stations to stop them from being able to warp into system. Another time you have to hold off to evacuate a space city. I believe you're holding off from the swarm in this one. And in the newest expansion, you destroy another of their bases, and at the end the scientist tells you it's time to capture the orb. Honestly, it's not that much, but animated cutscenes and voiced characters, I could see how anyone who knows the whole lore from episodes 1 would be really attached to the universe. This is the extent of my knowledge with the lore. Mostly it's just speculation. After going to the Fractured Space Discord and pressing the fan base about it, I was told that you can find more on Fractured Space at their wiki, but to be honest, I actually did go and I couldn't find anything. I spent 2 days trying to put together Fractured Space's lore. So again, I'm really sorry, but this is all I've got. Right now, to sum it all up, it seems Earth is relatively intact. There are pirates, there are foreign entities in space, 3 big factions have left, but there's probably more, and they kind of consist of America, Russia, and then some random military. Other than that, I can't really tell you much more. So now I guess I have to give it a rating out of 10 for both Dreadnought and Fractured Space. Now remember, this will all be added at the end of my 4th video. So this is not the final video. Dreadnought's lore to me is very much undeveloped. But even though it's undeveloped, there's just enough spice within descriptions and a lot of love that you can feel that the universe is alive, and it leaves you really wanting more. Unfortunately, leaving you wanting more is not always a positive thing, and I cannot let that influence me. So far, because both games have no main story, I would say that I can start them both at a 5, because for what they have is great. But for Dreadnought, I would like to say that it's good that there's established factions. It's pretty immersive. I understand that the shapes of the vessels, why they move as they are, and why they are what they are based on the descriptions does make me feel immersed. I do understand when I'm piloting a Jupiter's Arms battleship, vice an Akula Vector or an Oberon, and the Oberon are shaped in a way that you know they're very alien in nature or just different from regular humans. Now, with everything in mind, for Dreadnought I have to give it a 5 out of 10. Unfortunately, the lack of an actual campaign really hurts the game. The lack of really trying anything for story hurts. There's no story games, there's no story missions, there's no campaign, there's nothing at all. It's all within descriptions. So if you don't read descriptions, you would think that there was actually no lore at all. So that leaves the lore at 5 out of 10. Because what is there is really good, but unfortunately, it's not as compelling as Fractured Space, which has designated campaigns, audio, video, that they actually attempted to push some story onto you with. Now, on to Fractured Space. I want to give this a way high score because they are way more fleshed out. even dedicating cutscenes and time and resources into creating this lore. But the issue is, if you were to start playing right now, you would know episode 4, and unless you spent $40, you wouldn't know all the other lore. So it's kind of scatterbrained, and when I pressed the community Discord about it, they didn't seem to understand what the lore was either. So it's like, it puts me in such a hard spot, because I want to love the lore of this game because it is interesting. Whatever I do get, I latch onto and want more of, but it's so funneled and so limited. And unfortunately, as cool as the episodes are, they don't really give you a whole lot, because you're only fighting against the same ships that you always see. They didn't make an attempt to change the skins or anything. So with all that in mind, I have to give it a 6 of 10. Both games push really well into what they're doing, but then it just lacks. It's like you're going up a really good incline, and right as you think you're about to reach the top, it's like somebody sheared off the top of the mountain, and then you have to start descending, which takes away from the satisfaction of knowing all the lore, because there's just not enough right now. If I missed anything, or if you guys thought I could have done something better, please let me know in the comments below. I would be super interested to know way more lore about either game. I love them both, I do. And I hope that shows in this series. Leave a like if you liked this, leave a dislike if you didn't, but please don't leave me hanging. Let me know why you gave me the rating that you gave me. Look forward to my next video coming out next week. And don't think because I might sound like I'm bashing a certain game that would hurt the game. No, this is friendly competition, and these games aren't even of the same genre technically. Sure, they're both space fighters, but one's a MOBA and one's an arena shooter. So it really comes down to opinion. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you captains out there.